If you or someone you know is dealing with arthritis, you know it's so much more than just a minor ache. But what if one of the best ways to manage that pain isn't found in a prescription, but right there in your own kitchen? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the direct link between the food on your plate and the inflammation in your joints. And just to give you an idea of how big a deal this is, get this. Arthritis is the single #1 cause of disability in the United States. That's a pretty shocking statistic, right? It really shows why it's so important to find real, effective ways to handle its impact on everyday life. So, what exactly is arthritis? It's not just one disease. It's actually a catch-all term for more than 100 different conditions. But the one thing that connects almost all of them is joint inflammation. And that word inflammation is the key to everything we're going to talk about today. And that brings us to our first section, the hidden epidemic. We're calling it that because while we all know arthritis is common, most of us really underestimate the true scale of its impact and how much it's expected to grow. Check out this number, 50%. That's a pretty sobering forecast. Researchers believe that nearly half of all adults will be diagnosed with some kind of arthritis by the time they hit age 65. So, you see, this isn't some rare thing. It's a reality that will probably touch most of our lives, either directly or through someone we care about. Okay, so if inflammation is the big problem, where does food fit in? Well, a great way to think about it is to picture that inflammation as a fire smoldering inside your joints. Now, the right diet can help calm that fire down, but certain foods do the exact opposite. They're like throwing gasoline on the flames, making the pain, the stiffness, and the swelling way worse. And that brings us to the real heart of this explainer. Let's get right into it and break down the 9 specific food groups that the research shows you should probably think about cutting back on if you're trying to manage arthritis. So coming in at #1 is gluten. Now, this is especially true for inflammatory types of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis. For some people, gluten can actually trigger an immune response that directly makes joint pain worse. Then, at #2, we have red and processed meats. We're talking about things like bacon, sausage, and steaks. They're just loaded with saturated fats and other compounds that can really ramp up inflammation all over your body. #3 is a huge one, added sugars. Not only do they increase inflammation, but they can also lead to insulin resistance. That's a condition where your body's cells basically stop listening to insulin, which can lead to even more joint damage. And then we have alcohol. It's a diuretic, which is a fancy way of saying it dehydrates you. That dehydration can make your joints feel even more stiff and painful. And critically, alcohol can have some really dangerous interactions with common arthritis medications. Next up are 2 troublemakers that are really closely related: highly processed foods and way too much salt. Think about frozen dinners, canned soups. They are packed with sodium. This makes your body hold on to extra fluid, which puts more painful pressure on your joints. But it's a double whammy, because all that extra salt also makes your body get rid of calcium when you pee, and over time, that can weaken your bones. All right, before we get to our next food group, we need to quickly define a key term. It's called AGEs, which stands for Advanced Glycation End Products. I know, it sounds super scientific, but the idea is actually pretty simple. These are basically harmful little molecules that form when you cook proteins and fats with sugar at high temperatures. Think about that delicious crispy skin on grilled chicken or the char on a burger. Yep, that's where you find them. And that leads us straight to numbers 7 and 8. First, some vegetable oils like corn oil and safflower oil are really high in what are called omega-6 fatty acids. Your body turns those into compounds that actually promote inflammation. And second, foods that are high in those AGEs we just talked about, like grilled meats and some full-fat dairy, have been directly linked to making arthritis damage worse over time. And finally, number 9 is dairy. Now, it is really important to say this one mainly applies to inflammatory types of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis. For some people with these conditions, a protein in dairy can actually confuse their immune system, causing it to mistakenly attack its own healthy joint tissue. So, recognizing these triggers is step 1. Now, let's talk about the good stuff, what you can replace them with. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what to avoid, but this isn't about taking things away. Let's totally shift gears and focus on the positive, powerful changes you can make to build what we're calling an anti-inflammatory kitchen. So let's lock in on 3 simple, expert-approved actions you can take right now. We're going to focus on your fats, your protein, and a vitamin that is absolutely crucial for your bones and your immune system. First up, let's make a smart swap with your fats. This means cutting back on butter, margarine, and those omega-6 heavy oils like corn and safflower oil. Instead, make the switch to extra virgin olive oil. It has compounds that literally help lubricate your joints. And then, you've got to get those powerful anti-inflammatory omega-3s by eating fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or tuna a couple of times a week. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that managing arthritis is definitely a long journey. But making small, consistent changes to your diet can make a huge difference in how you feel every single day. So that leaves us with just one final question for you. Looking at this list, what's the first inflammatory food you think you could remove from your kitchen starting today?